Well, I imagine you guys are just having a blast. You know how if you think back on your careers, you know how many times have you covered such a good team, a team that's been highly ranked, a team that's playing against highly ranked teams all the time. I mean, think about it. Maybe when I was back at Southern Indiana, and I was in Division II, and Kentucky Wesleyan and Northern Kentucky, and us, and maybe some people like in Kentucky and Indiana that cared about it, right? But it was still 1 versus 2 versus 3, and you know, and so now we find ourselves, in this league. You guys are covering the best league in the history of college basketball. As we go to Vanderbilt and go to a place where they're 12-1, beating Tennessee, and who was ranked, whatever they were ranked. What was Tennessee ranked when they beat them? All right, and then they beat Kentucky. Tennessee was 6 and Kentucky was 9, right? And they're 12-1 there. We've won 7 out of 8 against Vanderbilt, and prior to that, we had lost 13 in a row. And so this has been Vanderbilt's been a tough place for us to play historically. And Mark has done a tremendous job. He's got 11 players, via the transfer portal. And Mark has done a tremendous job. He's an outstanding coach. He's got a great offensive mind. And again, I know you hear me saying that every now and then. It just does. And Vanderbilt deserves credit because they're committed. They've made a huge commitment. You can't get 9 guys out of transfer portal unless you're committed to NIL, and they have made a huge commitment. And as a result of his coaching and Vanderbilt's commitment, they were able to beat anybody in the country. You couldn't say that a year ago. Just done a tremendous job. Edwards is an all-you-can-handle guard. Devin McGlotton is a tough kid, BC kid. I'll throw that one in there. Hogart, is one of the better guards in the Big Ten at Michigan State. One of the better guards in our league right now. Tyler Nickel has grown and improved tremendously, and is a real dangerous threat. Terry, his dad played football at the high level, and is a phenomenal athlete. So they got a good team, and so it'll be offensively they're really, really good. Defensively they turn you over. That's what they do. They turn you over, and they're nationally ranked in turnover percentage and turnover margin, and they do it by pressing. They do it by playing really hard. They do it by doing a great job with their scouting and disrupt what you like to do. And so you got to take care of the ball against them.
Bruce, when Vandy beat Kentucky and Tennessee at home this year, they out-rebounded both those teams. They're much bigger than them. How much is that is kind of like focused hey, they might be on the smaller end, but they're going to scrap.
All I got to do is show them the Florida Vanderbilt game, which we will. They went down to Florida right before we played Florida. We saw how good Florida was, and it was a very, very close game, very, very late. It was close throughout the second half. Whatever Florida went up winning by at the end, that was not. And they physically hung in there with the most physical team in our league in Florida. And like you said, Tennessee, to do that to Tennessee was pretty uncommon.
Bruce, I know you guys were eager to get back to it on Sunday. What did you see from the team in terms of response after the first loss in 15 games?
I just think my reaction pretty much the same. Just give Florida credit. Florida played outstanding. They played like a like a Final Four team. I told you guys in advance. I thought they were a team that would be in get one of the 4 teams that would get a bye in the SEC tournament. That's almost, when you say that, it's almost like saying they're a Final Four team right now this year. And I reserved that because I didn't want to speak to other teams in the country. Felt like more even ranking them amongst our league, to sort of separate them. And then they clearly separate themselves by beating us here at Neville. There were definitely some things that we missed 40 shots. We missed 7 free throws in the second half. We did a pretty good job on the boards. I mean, we hung in there with them on the boards. But they got 2 guys off the bench that were plus 17, roughly speaking. And so they really stepped up. They kind of reminded me what they did to us was a little bit like what we did at Ole Miss. Now their win over here was a bigger win, but we had to play really well at Ole Miss. We banged 14 shots, and they came in and banged 13 threes. Played great. There were definitely some things that we could have done to play better.
Vanderbilt's obviously a very unique place to play, and they've had some success against really good teams at home this year. What makes playing there so different and so tough?
What would be like if we asked Coach Freeze to coach our football team from the end zone? That's what it would be like. And it's very different for the players. It's very different for the coaches. And but if Coach Freeze coached half of the season from the end zone, like Vanderbilt does, he'd get used to it. Big advantage.
Bruce said Janai coming back, from his injury, still putting up a lot of points, but finishing, his numbers are down. Do you think it's ankle bothering him, or team's kind of roughing him up a little bit more?
Yeah.
What do you think?
And you know what? Only because you get the question, and not because Janai would say one word about it. He's getting better, but the ankle's not 100%. He's at no risk for injury, not much of a greater risk for injury, but yeah, he's not able to push that off, and we have to do a little bit of load management with him, and he's not complained one iota. I'm telling you right now, I could only speak for Janai, but I do imagine that there are other players, let's even say maybe on my roster, I would just say even on other rosters, who have accomplished as much as he would have accomplished, who is in a running for National Player of the Year, who could say, Coach, let's wait a couple weeks till I'm 100%, because I'm worried that I may not look my best, and it could hurt me in my draft status. Auburn family, not 1 ounce of that from Janai Broom. Take me up. Let me get out there. I'll play as many minutes as I possibly can. I'll play as hard as I can. And we just hope that as the season progresses, which because he said, look, it does feel a little better. It does feel a little better every day. Now, the day after the game, it doesn't feel so good.
There's only 19 minutes for Chad against Florida. Was that sort of a matchup thing? I know he also left the court a couple times after.
Yeah, Chad's been really banged up. He's been banged up also. He's had, we don't like to specifically talk about that because we don't like. He's already a pretty big target, so I don't want to talk about some of the bumps and bruises and some of the things that he's in the training room for. But when you're 180 pounds and you're playing in a game, and without question, most physical league I've ever seen. And I've been doing this. I'm 64 years old. I've never seen the league this good, and I've never seen it this physical.
Yeah, Bruce, Vandy's offense got quite a few guys that are really good scorers. Just what stands out about them, especially the guard play they get from those transfers?
Well, I mean, Hogarth is a big, strong, power forward of a point guard. I mean, he's a fullback of a point guard. I've seen AJ since he was in, playing AAU. He's a legend in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. He really is. He's a little bit of a legend in the playground, the AAU circuit. He's been big kid for a long time. I remember when he was younger. I mean, he's physically dominating people. I think he likes Mark's system. I think he's playing even better than he did at Michigan State. But a year older, last go around. Edwards is a kid that proved. He's a little bit of a late bloomer, but proved at North Texas what an unbelievable scorer. he is. And while their posts are a little undersized, again, they're built like our defensive tackles at Auburn. I mean, they're 6'6", 6'7", but they're powerful and explosive. And Vanderbilt does not lack for size; they just lack for length. In some positions, just in some positions. It's a really, really good roster, and I think Mark is what makes them good. Good is stuff that runs hard to guard.